Hello, I'm Georgia Webber and welcome to the third episode of KOFISI Connect podcast. And this month, in recognition of mental health, we're looking at the very important issue of well-being in the workplace, where all too often long hours, bad working practices and a poor working environment can pollute your working day and affect your mental health. Well, in the studio with me is Eli Mwenda from Mantalk podcast. Welcome to KOFISI 9, Eli.
Thank you for having me.
Lovely to have you here.
Thanks for having me.
I feel like it's a bit of a personal question. Of course, we've only just met. But how were the past 2 years for your mental health? Did the kind of pandemic affect it in any way?
Okay, jumping straight in.
Yeah.
It was a weird one. So I think, like everyone else, my assumption of what was going to happen was short term. So like mentally, I'd prepared for like a 2-3 week weird situation with this new disease that's going around. But as time kept going on, I felt like I had to keep mentally adapting to what's happening and like new realities. Mm-hmm. So for me, when it did happen, I had my family staying with me in the country, which meant that my personal space had changed from just me to now multiple people in my house and not knowing when people are leaving. Yeah. But my family, I love them, but still, you know, that personal routine that you're used to.
Completely.
So there, we were stuck together for the whole period of it. And what I found is that I had to just learn to coexist with people again, and see the same people over and over and have a routine that doesn't take me into different environments, because as an individual, I like going out a lot. I don't like staying in the house. So for me, it was that kind of feeling cocooned. So I think it did take the toll in terms of, it was more uncertainty, and in terms of my work not being, because work takes up a big part of my life, but my work was not predictable and my routine was not predictable. So I found myself, my temper, I would say, definitely got shorter. My fuse got shorter, and the uncertainty sometimes like kept me up at night. So I'd say those are the main things, like people around me and the uncertainty, especially around my work and routine.
I mean, for men especially, I mean, I suppose mental health is a difficult kind of topic to discuss.
Yeah.
Did you discuss your mental health during the time with your friends? Did you talk about how you were kind of feeling?
So weirdly enough, I'll talk about mental health and COVID on my podcast, and then in the real world, I would keep the conversations very short. So the family, we always just like to check in on a weekend, like how's everyone doing? But you find yourself reserving a lot of information, and trying to, this is a man thing. Men, in my opinion, don't like offering what's going on wrong with them, but they like to hear people's problems and give solutions. So even in those settings, when the family's chatting, how's everyone doing? I know it's a weird time, because we all work in the same business as well, so we'd have to have those conversations. I would be listening to, say, my sister, my mother, and try to give them solutions. But now when they ask me, I'd be very reserved. I'd say, we're getting there, and kind of fluffy answers, but not getting to the core of it. It's only when maybe multiple things started going wrong, now associated to my work, like losing contracts because of COVID, late payments, etc., that people can visibly see that my demeanor is changing. So now they have to ask the tough questions, and I have to sort of come clean. So the conversations, weirdly enough, were with mostly the women in my life, not so much the men, because there's a mentality of, we're going to just crack on and get it done. So yeah, the women in my life definitely had those tough conversations, but on the platform as well, every week, that actually helped me. It was like a form of therapy.
Right.
I'm just going on the podcast, talking to my co-host, other people coming on our live sessions and chatting. So through hearing others, I was able to see like, okay, it's not just me, and have conversations, but I wish there was more about like myself and me becoming clean with how I was feeling, for sure.
So do you think, you've kind of answered this question already, but you're sort of perfectly poised to ask the second place part of this question, because you are Kenyan, but you've also grown up in the UK. Do you think that the topic of mental health is a kind of gender issue, or is it a cultural issue? And how do you see mental health being dealt with in the UK as opposed to kind of in Kenya? Okay,
so I think there's factors on both ends. Definitely when it does come to the gender side of mental health, it's kind of still linked with the society. So I would say that, okay, in the UK, I think we started the process earlier of encouraging open conversations, etc., because I think our culture allowed it a bit more. In Africa, as a guy, the mentality when it comes to men and their mental health is that it's not really it's only now that we've started to even open up and start having this conversation. So I think we've both been on the same process, because in the UK you've got, the blokes and, the pub guys that wouldn't really want to talk about it. But I think the UK just started slightly earlier, and I'm seeing the same path happening with Kenya. I think as well, when it comes to services where people can go and sort of get that help, the UK is a few steps ahead, but I'm liking that just on the digital platforms, there's a lot more information people are sharing as to where people can go within your community, and the society and the social group online, especially young people. I think they're sort of taking the initiative as well to help each other, even if the structures aren't as where they want them to be, but where they can find some resource, they're helping each other like online. I see that a lot. Someone will post like a whole poster where there's free services, etc., etc. So that's the difference I've seen. But when it comes to gender, I do think the ladies, when it comes to the topic of actual mental health, I always say that when you're growing up, like as a young girl, and something happens, say at school, and you go home, the first thing you do is talk about it and how it made you feel. And then you probably go back the next day. I've seen this with my sister. And you talk to your group of friends, your 6 friends, and say, you did this yesterday, I feel like this. So I feel like as they even progress in society, when they come to the stage where they're an adult and they need to express how they feel, they've had all of that training when they were like a child. Whereas a guy in the same situation is upset with his friend. Normally he'll pent it up and wait till PE or wait till sports to give that guy a shove. But you won't see them go and say, hey guys, we're 16 years old, let's sit at a table and say how I feel. Normally it's let's go here, let's play sports, etc. So now in society, when these are the adults that need to deal with emotional situations, you'll find that the ladies are so much more ahead when it comes to just expressing themselves, because it's like a muscle. You have to keep talking so that you're better at actually going from your mental to vocalizing how you're feeling. So definitely when it comes to genders, ladies are ahead, but I think through platforms that are coming up, like ours, like this, a lot of guys are going to realize that it's okay to start the conversation, even if you're not good, and maybe try catch up and exercise the muscle that they didn't do when they were younger, because now they're having that representation online.
So also there's a bit of advice for parents, really, is that you should be tackling the issue of sort of not necessarily mental health, but equally allowing your children to express themselves, within the family as well, as that it's a safe space 100%. And that it's an okay forum, for you to say, I've had a really bad day at school and my friends are...
because I think it will give them the tools now in a workplace, in a relationship, to be able to be like, oh, I remember I was told if I feel like this, I can say it. So I think, 100% for parents. I'm not a parent, so I can't really speak to it, but I hope that's something
you
I'll
will be
do
an
with my
awesome
kids.
dad.
Fingers crossed, yes. Thank you.
Obviously, mental health in the workplace is something that we take very seriously at KOFISI. Obviously, very pleased to say that you're a member of KOFISI, so, welcome. Our designers have spent a lot of time thinking about how to improve well-being in the workplace for our members. We use a lot of colour, there's lighting, hospitality services. We've got a well-being room here at KOFISI 9. What would you say affects your kind of well-being at work, and what factors do you think, I suppose, we've got right or we should look at to improve it?
Okay. So I would say, so first off, actually joining KOFISI was because after COVID, I was working from my house and I was going mad, having to be on the same dining room, go to the same office. So that kind of cocoon thing, as soon as COVID finished, I was like, I need an office, but I work for myself. So I have stores, but I can't really go and work in my stores with the staff. So I needed somewhere like a base. So coming to KOFISI, it's been actually quite important to me, because one of the things that does affect my mood incredibly is lighting. When I'm working, that's the first thing, lighting and temperature. I feel like if I work in a room where there's no ventilation, where there's no direct sunlight, like we live in Kenya, we're so blessed to be able to have that most of the year. I find that my productivity goes down. I rely on coffee much more than I want to. And just generally, I'll get tired much earlier if I'm not getting that sort of sunlight. So for me, that's really essential. Also, I think the beautiful thing about co-working spaces is the social aspect, and it's not as predictable as a typical office, because you're going to meet someone that you never knew. You get the opportunity to network, which has been brilliant for me as well. And I feel like when you go to sorry for guys that go to normal offices, when you go to your office, you can predict, you're going to say hi to this person, this is when your meeting is, etc. But that kind of co-working space where you're not at the same desk, I never sit at the same place. The beauty of having different branches as well for me is all linked to why I joined, because it was that monotonous thing that I'd had for 2 years that I needed to break. I haven't used the Wellbeing room yet. When I went on the tour, I said the first thing I'm going to do is do that. But you know, when you come to the work and you forget this is also where you can chill during a lunch break. Yeah. I sometimes find myself, and I need to get better at this, like bringing my lunch here and not stopping to even digest, but like eating while sort of typing. So that's like a negative, but that's on me. I think what you guys have definitely got right is just the idea of different like areas, and also the space we were talking about earlier, the new one, having that like outdoor indoor thing, because as much as lighting and temperature is important, I think plants, like that kind of nature aspect, it all definitely links. And these are things that it was only after speaking to my sister, because she's an architect, only after speaking to her that I realized how important all of this right to light, all these technicality things they speak about in that like field, how much people consider that when they're building something, and how much of a difference it makes to the people that are actually inhabiting that space. So yeah, I've definitely seen that conscious effort, like even when we're sat now, the lighting, etc. So yeah, KOFISI has been amazing on that aspect.
I literally think we've just got our kind of advert there. Yeah. We just need to take that soundbite and like play it.
I'll send you my rate card.
Wonderful. Your workplace is taken care of in terms of well-being, but employers also have a really big role to play in terms of making sure that wellness at work is a high priority. What would you say in Kenya specifically you've seen that perhaps employers can do to make it a more, I suppose, productive and motivating place to be?
I think I can't really speak to like the corporate side just because of the nature of my work, but speaking to my buddy who I do the podcast with, who's a lawyer, and when we do have these conversations on like our IG Live about how was your workplace experience, a consistent thing I've heard, especially from ladies, is the culture. As much as you can have a brilliant building, etc., as long as if the culture is toxic and it doesn't benefit both genders, then people are dreading coming to work every time, and there's a high turnover, and that's not good for your like company if there's a high turnover of staff. So I think if I was to like have a quote unquote office like this, one of the first things in my mind would be, if you're trying to have an effective workplace, is making the culture make everyone feel safe, because there might be a culture outside of the workplace, like in your certain city, how guys talk to girls, etc. But if that translates into your workplace, you're going to find that people they're thinking about other things rather than their work. And we've had really deep conversations about this, even sort of on our platform. So that'd be my number one thing, literally just the culture, because I think through conversations with ladies, it's a massive, massive thing. And sometimes as guys, we can sort of live in a blissful ignorance that the workplace is where it's effective. You go, you grind this time, you're going to be there late, but you don't realize that half of your staff, as much as they're thinking about the deliverables, as much as they're thinking about productivity and profit, they're also thinking about their safety and how they feel just talking to their boss, if they can have certain conversations. And one thing people have been talking about as well is letting people be as open as possible with how they're feeling, even though it's a corporate space. If people can say, we did this task, but the way it was managed, I didn't feel it's like it was done the right way for me, the way I work, and taking into consideration how each individual person does work. Because I think you can sort of try fit everybody in the same box, and if people aren't as productive in that one linear way, then it looks like they're a bad employee. But if you give that sort of open space for people to input in the way that they like to work, then I thought you're going to have a much more productive work environment. That's what I would do if I was having an office.
Awesome.
Yeah.
You see, for me, I suppose as a mum, for me, it's about flexibility. Right. So what I really enjoy about working for KOFISI is that, it is flexible. We, if you needed to work from anywhere else, as you were saying, I could work from Riverside Drive, and they're able to kind of go and pick the kids up from school. For me, that's sort of really important. So balancing, having a sort of work-life balance, 100%, I think is kind of important for my mental health.
Yeah, sure.
Even though my kids drive me crazy.
Yeah.
You work irregular hours. I was just wondering how you kind of look after your wellness, outside of the office, and what you do. Do you have a routine? So
this is something I'm working on. But I have a really, really good friend of mine. I don't know if you're familiar with one of my buddies called Georgie. And we've had so many conversations about work-life balance. Because in terms of his career, absolutely thriving, but he would still always have time for a social life. He'll be texting me, like, are we going somewhere, etc. And I'd be like, how are you managing to balance the two? And he just basically told me it's about priorities. So my outlook has changed. I'll say what it was before and what it is now. Before, nothing else mattered apart from the dream and like what I'm trying to do. So I would blow off social events. I would not really care about how my routine was in the morning and how, like, if I was ever still in the day, it was just sort of go, go, go. But what I've realized now, speaking to my friend, and I'll always shout him out for this, is if you manage to create a balance, you're actually more effective in the times when you are needed to work. So my routine now, because it is irregular hours, because I work for myself, and the dilemma I have is that I do literally 5 different businesses, so they'll all need attention. But what I've realized is that if I don't take care of the person that needs to make decisions in all of these, then they're all going to suffer. So my priority every single day is I have to start the day at the gym. And if I don't, then I'll find my equilibrium is just off like the whole week, especially on a Monday, to set the tone for the week. So every single morning, 7 a.m., I go to a gym, and it's like a communal gym where it's like you have that social aspect as well. It's a group workout, and it's very intense. But you leave there like you can do anything that day. And once you check that off the list, for me, I feel like everything else on the list is not going to be as hard as what I was doing there. So I find that when I start my day like that, super productive. Also, when I'm coming to the spaces, I know I said that, the pasta next to the laptop is a thing, but what I do try to have is when I finish a task, there's a website that you can use where you basically time yourself for like every 20 minutes or 15 minutes. So a timer will go off and it will say, okay, you've done 20 minutes of work, like stop for 3 minutes. So having those like little still moments in between the day have really helped me like stop, come out of the task. Am I being objective? What am I doing here? And then jump into the next one. So gym, timing, and then now when it comes to the weekends, before I used to be like, no, because I'm wasting a Saturday if I'm with my friends. I can be getting another day ahead of everyone else. I'm a very competitive person, so that used to translate. But now I've said, okay, if it gets to like Friday, 7 p.m, it can be burning. Like, I don't care. This needs to be now my time that I need to spend with people that I like, especially now living in a country on my own. And my family's not here. I need to make sure I'm having like wholesome and proper connections with the people in my life at the moment, like my buddies. So I'm very conscious of every weekend I need to do at least one thing. It doesn't have to be extravagant. At least have like one conversation, one coffee on the weekend. And I have a Sunday ritual that I always do as well, where I will go to a cafe on my own, put in a podcast, just have my coffee, and just have that like still moment on a Sunday before I start the week again and getting like a nice early night. So that's how I am now, but before it was just an absolute mess. Yeah.
And your mental health then was just all over the shop.
Or like you don't understand why you're frustrated at a very simple task, why it's taking you 3 hours to reply to an email, but it's because you're not having those still moments. You're not just being able to be yourself outside of like a workhorse, like you're being a human being outside of just work. So yeah, I've seen the difference for sure.
I love the fact that you are an advocate of an eating the frog. Mm-hmm. Well, do you know? Have you heard of eating?
No,
the frog?
I was going to ask.
So to eat the frog is where you get you get the thing that is the most horrible task out of the way in the beginning of the day. For you, in your example, it's going to the gym. So you get that hard work, that hard slog out of the day. You're eating the frog, and then the rest of the day is
eating the frog. I love that. Yeah, 100%.
You're eating the flowers.
Yes, this is true. Or the choma. Yeah,
absolutely. Yeah. So I was just wondering, you've worked in all of our workplaces. Tell me, what you think we could probably do to improve the spaces. Is there something that you think that we're not providing?
So this might be that I just don't know that it's happening. This might just be a bit of ignorance on my part. And you can correct me if I'm wrong. But what I find it could be really cool because it's a co-working space and you'd never know who you're going to meet right during the day in the work day. It's probably like a 5-minute conversation. But I don't know if this happens already, but what would be really cool if there was like regular mixers where this happens already, isn't it?
We don't have your email address.
Oh, that's what
I don't know.
I've been missing out on these weekends. But like having because you have like lovely rooftops, the new space will have a lovely like garden area, but like like a weekly after Friday kind of social things. Yeah, that would be really cool. But if it's already happening, that's my bad. But that's
just make sure you get a special invitation.
I think so. Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah, that's the only thing I'd say.
Wonderful. Eli, it's been a pleasure talking to you. Thank you. It's been a very enlightening session. And I hope that anyone who's listening, it will make a difference to their mental health and maybe give them a few sort of take-home pointers of what they can do to set it on the right path.
Thank you for having me. It's been a good conversation.
Absolutely, our pleasure. Thanks so much.
Thank you so much. Cheers.